Hello everyone, and welcome to my presentation about the eukaryotic cell for Year 8 Science. For this presentation, we'll be going over a number of things in relation to the eukaryotic cell. Specifically in this table of contents, it shows what we are going over. So we'll go over the cell structure, the cell function, types of eukaryotic cells, locations they can be found, how it differs from the prokaryotic cells, and then any real world and medicine and research contexts. So that is what we will be covering in this presentation. First off, we'll start with the eukaryotic cell structure. Eukaryotic cells are very unique and very different to prokaryotic cells. Their structure contains clearly defined nucleus as well as a variety of organelles within the cell. This cell is enclosed by a plasma membrane, and the eukaryotic cell is found in all multicellular organisms. So this cell is very complex and it contains many organelles, which you'll see on the next slide. These contain things like DNA and also help to create energy within the cell. So these are just a few organelles that you may find in a eukaryotic cell. I will go through just a few different ones and their functions. So the cell membrane is the outer part of the cell, and this provides the cell with protection from other things in the body and diseases. And it also allows things to transport inside the cell or outside the cell. So it sort of helps with that diffusion. As well as this, we have the nucleus. This is the housing component of the cell of the DNA. So it holds all the DNA. It's the control center. And then we also have a few different things. So you'll notice at the bottom there is the chloroplasts. So these are only found within plant eukaryotic cells. You won't find these within animal eukaryotic cells. And they aid in photosynthesis. And then we also have the mitochondria, which are the energy production within the cell. So they create the energy. There also is a few different things there, and they all do have different functions for the cell. Now, moving on to the function of the cell, as mentioned before, the organelles in the cell do have a lot of functions, and then they do lead to the main functions of the cell. So the eukaryotic cell is a main storage of DNA and genetic information. It also provides energy production for the body in the form of ATP through the mitochondria. Protein synthesis also occurs. Cell division, now in animals and eukaryotic cells, this can be through mitosis or meiosis, so asexually or sexually, and then also photosynthesis through these cells, but that is obviously only in plants, not in animal cells. And here we just have a breakdown of the difference between the prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells and the differences between them. It is very basic, but feel free to take a look. Eukaryotic cells come in all different shapes, sizes, and types, and they are very unique, each and every one of them. So in this slide, we'll just go over a few different types of the eukaryotic cells and what they do around the body. So first off, we have red blood cells. These are cells that are integral to supporting our function every day. They transport oxygen from the heart and the lungs to the working muscles and allow us to move freely and get oxygen all around the body, especially to the organs. We have bone cells. These cells are within the bones and aid in the formation, strength, and maintenance of the bones. We also have sperm cells. These are the male reproductive cells. And then the muscle cells, these enable any movement throughout the body, so both voluntary, so when you move your leg to kick a football, or involuntary, where the heart is pumping every day for 24 hours to make sure we're still alive. As mentioned earlier, there are a lot of places that these eukaryotic cells are found. Specifically, they're found in animals, plants, in our organs within our bodies, fungi, yeast and molds, algae, and many more things. They basically, anything that is living, you'll find a eukaryotic cell. So now we're looking at the difference between the prokaryotic and the eukaryotic cells. These cells are very different, and one of the main differences is the size of the cell. Prokaryotic cells, as they are very small, they don't contain a nucleus compared to the eukaryotic cells, they are quite small in size. But some other contrasts between the two are prokaryotic cells obviously have no nucleus, and a eukaryotic has a clear defined nucleus with the genetic DNA inside. Prokaryotic cells have circular DNA, and this DNA just floats in the cell, whereas the eukaryotic cells have linear DNA, which, as mentioned before, is contained within the nucleus. Eukaryotic cells do have those membrane-bound organelles, and a lot of them do keep up with the structure and the function of the cell and current day-to-day living things, whereas the prokaryotic cells don't have those organelles. There are a few different things on there if you want to keep reading, and that allows you to know the difference between the prokaryotic and the eukaryotic cells. There are also a few other things, but they're the main ones. Eukaryotic cells are used in a wide range of real-world research and medical contexts. So firstly, they are used in cancer research, where the cancer cells are studied to understand how the cancer develops, grows, and spreads, to hopefully minimize this and in future find medication to decrease this. They also are used in stem cells and research, which have the ability to differentiate into various cell types. This makes them invaluable in medicine, as they are used to repair tissues and organs that may be damaged. So specifically, this might be used in spinal cord diseases or heart disease. They also aid in vaccine development. So they're used to produce viral vectors or proteins that form the basis of many vaccines. So this includes things like the COVID-19 vaccine. These were used a lot in the development of that. And then lastly, they also are critical in medication discovery. So they go through a high screening process, and researchers test thousands of different cells and compounds to identify potential medications that can be used worldwide. There is, as I mentioned, a lot more ways they are used. These are just a few. Thank you for listening to my presentation. I hope you found out a little bit about eukaryotic cells and their functions and structures.